Hi there, welcome to episode 214 of Roqe. The young souls we've lost are not simply numbers. They are our reborn identity. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto. Salam dostan aziz. Durud ba shama. The young souls we've lost are not simply numbers. They are the exemplars of a reborn Iranian identity. They are giving us that gift, and it is unwavering. Amidst the heartache and horror of watching this bloody regime in Iran spend its expiring final days stealing innocent young lives, is the beauty of learning about who they were, the collective quilt of what we all now know, and the inspiration of how we will never let them go. If you're an Iranian anywhere in the world, you don't need to be told. It's an unstoppable force of synergistic knowledge. It's the development of a new code, a sense of who we are, defined by young people who have raised our bar. And these are images we'll never ever forget. The unmistakable dancing of young Khodanur, the singing of Nikah, the personality of Sarina, the flowing locks of Chef Mehrdad, the dancing of dear Mahsa. You see, it's the same reason we chant, say her name, a reminder that we must never lapse into forgetting or forgiving who they have stolen from us. We must honor those kids who have given their souls. But it's much deeper than a name. It's the stories of short but radiant lives lived, of powerful young forces that have inspired us to pause and look in the mirror and follow their lead for change. The spirit of who they were, each innocent young life that this regime has taken but cannot ever really kill, because each one of them is now forming the DNA of a global Iranian will. You know, there's a tendency in troubled parts of the world, as they say, to treat the death counts like a scoreboard at a basketball arena. The Western media will cite the numbers as if statistics in war games. The sum total's meant to shock. The omissions are the names. But that's not happening this time. Not for Iranians. In a gratifying and achingly heartfelt confluence of willpower, passion, social media, and lessons learned from 43 years of repression, the shared stories and hearts of the young we have lost are forming the tapestry of identity for the Iranian community. From Tabriz to Toronto and Mashhad to Madrid, we know their names, we know their beauty, and we know the pride they have given us. We can see their dances, we can hear their voices, we can each go on at length about their individual strength. And while we mourn and cry and scream and wonder why, there is a light they have lit that cannot be extinguished. There is a legacy they have created that will not be dimmed. And so here's a simple reason the regime won't win. Because every time they take another young life, they grow our tapestry of reborn identity. They build our bonds through collective memories. They invigorate our resolve to be an unmistakable, unshakable tree. The young lives we have lost are not simply numbers. They will never be. They are the exemplars of our reborn identity. Coming up on this special edition of Roqe, Yasamin Karimi, Mehrdad Ahmadpour, and Dr. Nafise Motlaq, plus our Roqe Roundtable. This is Roqe, episode 214, The Uprising. The young souls we've lost are our reborn identity. So we are back here in the Roqe studio in Toronto, Canada, as we were on Monday after about a week and a half in Istanbul. And I'm joined once again for the Roqe Roundtable before we get to our featured guests with our regular Roqe On Air team. Actually, this time, Darya and Mami here in the studio. Hello.
Hello, Jian.
And Shaya. Yes, sir. Hello.
Hi.
How are you? Coming up on this program, psychotherapist and counselor Yasamin Karimi. She's always great on this program, and she's joining us to talk about the psychological implications of this revolution and the news coming out of Iran. You know how we're all toggling, we're like a pendulum between heartbreak and inspiration and back and forth and unable to sleep and all of that. She has clients all over the world, including in Iran and here of Iranian background, and has a lot of perspective to give us on the way we're feeling and why we're feeling this way. So Amazing. Yasamin Karimi coming up, and I'm also curious how she's doing, how she's processing this as an Iranian woman who is exiled from Iran or left Iran and is doing the work she does here. Mehrdad Ahmadpour coming up on the World Cup. Those of you who are regular Roqe listeners know that Mehrdad's been on the show a few times to talk about football. He's a big fan. He's a podcaster. He's a documentarian. And he's talking about the World Cup. So,
okay.
Oh boy. Yeah. So, so this is now less than 2 weeks away. I mean, in any normal universe, we would be super excited.
We would all, yeah.
Right? I mean, we're all football fans. I'm a huge fan. I've got my 3 countries, ostensibly Canada, England, and Iran. And based on the revolution in Iran, and of course all the horrible news coming out of Iran, and the nature of this regime, and Team Melli being a proxy for the regime, unless they somehow protest or disassociate themselves, all of that is leading to a lot of confusion around what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to act, how we should feel even about Iran being in the World Cup, which previously would have been no-brainer. Regime, whatever, go to hell, we're going to cheer the team on and have a few moments of excitement every few years, right? So now Mehrdad, I think, has a pretty strong position on this, which is that I mean, he doesn't even think the World Cup at all should be in Qatar, you know, based on human rights violations that have occurred there, and anti-LGBTQ positions in the laws and the government there. And he's come on the show before to talk about his discomfort with Iranian football and Team Melli based on, you know, women not being allowed to be in the stands in Iran, all kinds of reasons. And now this regime and this revolution, I think he's going to have a pretty not a very tolerant position about what Team Melli should be doing, and our position on that. He put up a post saying that he doesn't feel excited at all about this World Cup. I'm not sure I'm quite there, so we might end up debating a little bit, but it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be an interesting conversation, and I really don't know. Do you know what we're supposed to do?
I mean, it's really. I mean, I was hoping they banned Iran, so now we are خیالم راحت بود دیگه. We know that there is no match to watch.
Right.
Now it's.
You were hoping that FIFA banned Iran.
Yes. Yeah. But now, I mean, I really don't know what the best
I've been canvassing. I'll say this to Mehrdad, but I've been canvassing friends and family to try and figure out my own position, and I mean, everyone's having a little trouble with this. Had a couple people who I really trust who are quite, you know, involved in the revolution and stuff kind of go, you know, we got to sort of wait and see, like, what Ali Dai says, you know, or what Ali Karimi says, and then we kind of, I mean, what they tell us that the best thing to do is, and then we'll all follow. You know, I don't know. What are you thinking?
I really don't know. I mean, I'm hopeful that they do something that shows their support, but also I know that there are so many, you know, restrictions that it can't really be political, you know, demonstration or anything, and
Team Melli played today, right?
Yeah, they did.
And they didn't do anything, but they
didn't sing the anthem.
Some of them didn't sing the anthem.
Yes,
right.
It wasn't, all of them. 2 of them, they actually did, so it was, no one was singing. Then there were 2 of them, they were singing, which was Mehdi Torabi and Wahid Amiri. They were the 2 that they sang.
How does that go over back in the change room, I wonder.
You
know?
Oh God, yeah.
That's really fucked up. I mean, that's weird stuff. You know,
they have their, you know, hand on each other's shoulders.
Yeah, brothers in arms. Yeah, not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I know there's a lot of pressure on these guys, but what does not singing? I'll bring this up with Mehrdad too. But what is not singing the anthem? I mean, does it really? I know it's symbolic, you know, I mean, growing up here and watching hockey and soccer here, I mean, there's different countries playing. They always have a national anthem. Half the guys are not singing; they're chewing gum, or you know, it's not really that big a deal. I don't know if this is, but I guess when your national team plays, is the expectation that all these guys are supposed to sing?
Yeah, for Iran's team, I really don't remember like the last time that they didn't sing.
Right.
I think maybe you have to know that in Iran this is something that they always do, and it's unusual if they don't
it's a symbolic gesture.
Yeah, but what actually made me think right now is like, please don't attack me, but there's 11 person there, and two of them, they are pro-regime.
Or not willing to protest. So
or not willing to protest.
whatever.
Okay, so that's all. I mean, it as a if you want to.
It's a probably good percentage of Iran, right? Is that
yes. That it.
Why would
they
be
represent a small percentage of.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're not wrong.
Yeah,
you're not wrong. There are still people holding out. I mean, there's all the people who are employed by SEPA, right? I mean,
Yes.
I guess who knows? Most of them still support.
Yeah, I mean, if they do a referendum, probably this percentage would.
Also on this show coming up, an interview from Istanbul from a few days ago on the weekend, a conversation with documentarian, academic, and journalist Nafise Motlaq. And Nafise, I mean, this was a really, really interesting conversation for me. She's experienced. She knows what you're nodding because you did the editing on it, so you know it. Yeah, it's she's had a lot of experiences in the field as a journalist. She was a journalist first in Iran, had to leave there in 2004, couldn't do the kind of work she wanted to do, and for about a decade now has been in Istanbul. And that perspective, we've talked about it a bit here on the show as we've been rolling out these in Istanbul interviews, but of being that close to Iran. And really seeing this revolution from that proximity, she has some really interesting insights, and we'll get to that. Anyway, that's that interview coming up before the show is done. I was feeling today, speaking of, Yasamin Karimi coming up in a few moments, the psychotherapist. I was feeling, I feel like it's been a seesaw of a day, where my emotions with respect to Iran anyway have been so up and down, because I woke up feeling really inspired, and I saw some artwork that just so proud of so much of what has been created out of this by Iranians. It's just amazing stuff, right? It's just like this fountain of creativity and love and inspiration and art, and
so much emotion.
So much, and it's just so beautiful. It's like, wow. Beyond the unity and the sisterhood and the brotherhood and the way people are coming together trying to help each other, and those of us in the diaspora trying to help those in Iran, even the act of all of that is so beautiful. But the actual artistry and expression that is coming out will last for generations. Everything ended tomorrow in whatever way, positive or dystopian or whatever. We're left with this incredible, this treasure chest of stuff that's been created. So I was feeling all, animated and excited about that. And then I started thinking about, the executions and the new law that they're passing or passed or whatever the hell the Majlis is doing, and the essay I did on Monday about that and the worth of an Iranian life. And I started thinking about this Saman Yassin, this 27-year-old rapper that and it's just it can't help but ruin your day if you go there in your mind and think about what's actually happening in Iran. And I gave some details in the essay, but go ahead if you wanted to talk a bit about Saman, because I know that was something you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, so Saman Yassin, his name is Saman Sayyedi, known as Saman Yassin. As I said, is 27 years old, Kurdish rapper from Kermanshah. His songs are about poverty, injustice, unemployment, government oppression, the day-to-day life in Iran. And he was arrested.
By the way, what pretty much any rapper anywhere is rapping about, other than chicks and whatever. That's basically it's
the nature.
Yeah, you're representing the street, whatever. That you're going to talk about poverty. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was arrested at his home on October 2nd after attending protests in Karaj. And on October 29th, he was sentenced to death in court, public court, but without
quote unquote court.
Yeah. Without any family members or lawyers or just like those courts that Qazi Salawati is running. And yeah, his crime now is muharebe, which is enmity against God and collusion against the regime.
Right.
And yeah, there's
basically you went to a protest.
Yeah, you went again. You went to a protest, and now you are declaring war against God.
Yeah.
Like how, where,
and we're going to kill you for that.
We're going to kill you.
Apparently,
for that.
God is okay with that part too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
unbelievable.
So yeah. We talked about Toumaj, the other big name rapper that who we still don't have really updates on. We just know he's detained, and we're worried about his situation. But in this case, Saman Yassin has actually been sentenced to death, and for the crime of I like how they don't even have a better excuse to he disrespected God. I mean, it's madness. It's back to stoning someone for what's that?
That's what they do to everyone. Like all the crimes right now is that.
Yeah. And speaking of which, Hossein Ronaaqi, who is also, now I don't think he's sentenced to death, but he's the dissident journalist that they famously captured. Tell us the update on him, because he's in the middle of a hunger strike.
Right. So. Just to give a little background of Hossein Ronaaqi, he's a blogger, human rights activist. He was arrested in 2009 for providing proxies and VPNs, and that was his crime. And he was imprisoned for 5 years for that. And now, to explain what that means to everybody, when people have trouble getting internet access in Iran, they use VPNs. So he helped people get some access, and that's a 5-year jail term. Yeah. And right now he has been on hunger strike for 46 days. 46 days. And he's in risk of kidney failure, suffering from high blood pressure, and his body is basically failing. And despite his critical condition, they refuse to send him to hospital to get proper.
Yeah, today actually he could speak to his sister for 2 minutes, and his sister, like a couple hours ago, she said that he's like close to death.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just as a sidebar, this is why I'm sure this revolution will succeed. Not because, God forbid, Hossein Ronaaqi or Saman Yassin might die, and they may. But because there's just so much going on, there's so many acts of defiance against, people are so fed up, and any one of these would have been a major story, Yes. But we literally, as we do these shows, I can't keep up with, I feel like there's so many acts of unwitting omission where we're not mentioning all kinds of things that are going on, let alone the names of and personalities and lives of the people that they've been killing. But how can they possibly keep a lid on all of this? Short of killing the entire country, and those of us in the diaspora who won't die, until we're rid of this regime too.
I was just thinking they wouldn't hate that, to just
get rid of everybody.
Get rid of everybody.
Yeah, and interestingly, none of them took actual weapon and go against this regime. They use pen as their weapon, and they sentenced.
That's what I'm saying. They can't even come up with an excuse like the guy took a knife to a police officer or something. I mean, he's a blogger, he provided VPNs, he's a rapper who went to a protest. I mean, it's unbelievable stuff. Now, in the midst of all this, I mean, I guess the hunger strike is a form of defiance. It's so hard thinking about that. But there are acts of defiance that are happening. There's in profound ways, in some sort of collective ways. There's the Iranian water polo team that refused to sing the national anthem, and then the guy who scored the goal and did the symbolic cutting of the hair. But I really wanted to talk about Taraneh Alidoosti because As most people who are listening to this would know now, not only is she a superstar, but she spectacularly came out yesterday with an Instagram post without a hijab and a sign saying "Women, Life, Freedom," and it is such a profound act of courage. This person is in Iran.
Yes.
She's inside Iran, and she's maybe one of the best known actresses in the country.
Yes.
By easily.
Yes.
I mean, you know, the first thing I thought was, I was in Turkey last week, and there were people saying, people I know, like, you know, people who are acquaintances in Turkey, saying, Iranians saying, Jian, I'd like to come on the show, but you know, this isn't the best timing. I mean, and all kinds of people who from day one, people who I don't want to say their names to you know, shame them somehow, but from day one of this 2.5 months ago, there's been people who've said, no, I don't feel comfortable saying anything right now. In Toronto, I don't feel comfortable saying anything. You know, maybe I want to travel to Iran or my family or, you know, whatever they say. And be that as it may, that's their decision. But in that context, for arguably one of the most famous people in the Iranian world, to come out from inside Iran, inside Iran currently, and do this, I was blown away, and I was just like, man, iftikhar mikonim. You know, that is so. I bow to you, Taraneh Alidoosti.
Not only that, but she also specifically mentioned that I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna fight with you. So I think that was amazing. The whole thing that she did, as well as saying that no, I'm not afraid of you. I'm gonna stay here. Like that part of the song that people in Sharif keep singing, Safar chera be mano pas begir. It's so inspiring, and I think I'm really actually hopeful to see more of these sort of acts in the next days. We've seen actually some celebrities already supported her, but also like something very similar to be happening.
Yeah, there was a couple of other people who it feels like it's starting it's going to start a trend of people doing it. I mean, there to be fair, there's been some famous people who have spoken out, but I can't think of anyone who's done it in this bold a way in this moment. What did you feel, Shaya, when you saw her do this?
Oh, I mean, first of all, yes, I am proud of her, and like, she's fearless. But in the other hand, I'm waiting to hear some bad news about like people around her. You know, maybe they don't arrest her directly, but for sure it has some.
There's going to be some implications for her.
Oh, big time. Speaking of that, I mean, couple hours ago, another girl who was in a team Melli of تیر و کمان اندازی بود.
Arrow, bow and arrow.
Yeah.
It's not called that officially, but yes, we get the idea.
Yeah, actually, she also on the stage that they want to give medal to her, she also took off her hijab, and it's interesting. Like when you see the picture, the second person tried to cover her hijab, but she refused, and it was interesting. Yeah.
Wow!
It gets viral.
Yeah,
like
well, I mean, the best way. Look, I mean, we can't tell people what to do, especially with their lives are in danger. When I was facing this situation in Turkey, you know, some of the people would say, okay, well, what do you think will happen if I come on? And I say, listen, I would like you to come on our show. I'm here. I'm going to, you know, but don't come on if you know, I can't be, I'll respect whatever your decision is. So of course we have to respect everybody making their own decision. But the best way to support Taraneh Alidoosti would be if a whole bunch of other celebrities did it, because they can't they can punish one person or their families or whatever you say, but if 1,000 people are doing it,
Yeah.
I mean, then
Exactly.
what, right?
I know the campaign already has started that we are supporting Taraneh, and so I'm sure by next days we will see more of this.
Right.
act, Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
that would be. But what you say is quite alarming, Shaya, because before we started recording, I said something about this, and I think Mehrdad will. Maybe we can talk about Team Melli in this context as well. But Taraneh Alidoosti is so famous that it that almost becomes, at least one might think, could be some kind of shield for her. You know, in terms of the regime is as stupid as they are, is not so stupid as to try to harm her or whatever. But you were saying it doesn't always play out that way. It can be done in a more deceptive and draconian way in which they go after.
Yes, like I mean, in the you can see in the gangster movies, like some of Zabun Amlal, some of like her families, like second families, they would kill in a car accident, and you cannot prove that it happened by regime, but yeah, it happens a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
It
And
happened a lot of
Darya, you were actually one of the talking points for today that you had mentioned to me that you were wanted to talk about was families, and
Yeah.
so what did you want to say on that?
Well, I mean, to that point, definitely, like we've seen so many times before that, family members mysteriously, like, they got killed in a car accident or something. But also, like, one thing I want to just talk about the other side of it, that right now, like today, there was news that Elham Afkari, who's Navid Afkari's sister, was arrested because she was very active recently, and they accused her of being in touch with Iran International.
Navid Afkari, to remind everybody, the athlete who was executed last year.
Yes.
So this is his sister.
His sister being active now. And also another person who's been very active is Mahi Mokhtari, sister of Muhammad Mokhtari, who was killed in 2009 again in Jombesh Sabs. And we all have seen Hassan Ronaqi, Hossein Ronaqi's brother. So all of these people are being active there because, like, they really directly being hurt, like their loved ones are being hurt. They are either killed or being tortured. So regime keeps arresting, torturing, and killing people. What are they going to do with the families? They cannot go around and kill everyone. They're just like, every day that passes, they will just have more people that are determined to see their end. And
it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle in the sense that for every person I would always say this in terms of conflicts that have raged for years in the Middle East, where you think every time somebody gets murdered, that person has or detained or tortured or all these things that we're talking about in terms of the Iranian context, that person has maybe children or cousins or close friends or parents. Those people are never going to forget.
Never.
As the Flight 752 mantra is, never forget, never forgive.
Yes.
And so it just becomes, you're absolutely right. Like, you know, it's like a domino effect. You keep coming after us, keep killing, keep doing this. Anybody who around that person is like dropping a stone into a pond and the ripples go out. All of those people are not going to forget this. The more Iranians you kill, the more Iranians will never forgive. But it's so devastating to think about the families having to be re-terrorized, re-traumatized.
Absolutely.
Who was it on Monday? Parastu Fatimi was talking on the show about the family of Hadis, the young woman who was killed. Then the sister goes to the funeral and she gets arrested and
got shot.
And got shot.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, it like speaking of Elham Afkari, when you see the video of her parents that they going to the prison and like banging on the door, and it's like you can feel their pain. They don't want to lose another kid. And
I cannot imagine what they're going through, really, because they've been through this. Like, Navid Afkari was arrested, and was sentenced to death. Like, people started to, go viral with hashtags. Nothing happens. He got killed, executed at the end, and now like another.
Yeah, I remember thinking with my own naivete. I remember thinking with the Navid Afkari situation, which was only a year and a half ago. We talked about it on the show, even right before he was executed. I remember thinking, they can't really go ahead with this. There's too much attention is on this now. And it was just yet another example of how. This is why reformism was dumb, and the idea of trying to reform this regime, because they are the people who called them out as ruthless from day one and said these people can never be, you can't make a deal with them, were right. There's no hope in anything other than getting rid of this regime, because there's no ethics, there's no humanity, there's no idea, there's no logic. And every one of these stories, I mean, even just like the courage we're talking about Taraneh Alidoosti, think about what we're actually talking about. A woman took a selfie with like a sign. Yes. I mean, it's insane, You think like she climbed the top of the Eiffel Tower and, poured, what she's done is so profoundly courageous, because that's how insane this regime is.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
And it's also inspiring. It's also inspiring. We've got to keep coming back to that, the hope and the unity and the inspiration, and how this is how change happens, right?
Absolutely. And one thing that was circulating around was also that bravery is contagious, and that's very true. Yeah. Like these little act of showing.
Yeah. Think of all the little girls in Iran right now who saw Taraneh Alidoosti do that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thank you, you guys. I want to say a quick thank you to, we've been pulling long hours here. It's a small team, and the team works so hard. There were some nice people who volunteered and brought us some food the other day. And I just thought, and we didn't ask them, they said, we really like the work you're doing, and they brought, they cooked, a few of them cooked food and brought it, and I just thought that was such a lovely gesture, and so indicative of what I feel like is happening in the Iranian community right now. Some of the beautiful stuff that's happening, that people we don't even know said, we love what you're doing, and we really appreciate it. We wanted to help somehow, so we brought you some food, and it was lovely.
Amazing. Next time, please bring Monday or Thursday. Which I
agree.
Yeah, everybody except Shaya ate the food, and there's still some remaining. Thank you, Darya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shahjan.
Thank you.
Let's get to our first guest. My first guest grew up in Iran and is now a member of the diaspora here in Toronto. She is a registered psychotherapist and Canadian certified counselor, public speaker, a lecturer, a supervisor, and an advocate on mental health. She's also a doctoral candidate at York University, and you can find her on her popular Instagram page, yasaminkarimi.therapy, where she's been quite outspoken about this revolution that's happening in Iran and the mental health effects of it for all of us. Yasamin Karimi joins me from Toronto right now. Hello.
Hi, Jian and everybody.
Nice to see you. This is the first time we've had to chat, at least in a somewhat official kind of way, since all of this began, or at least this latest iteration of the revolution began. Been thinking about you, and I'm glad that we have the opportunity to talk about mental health and how this is affecting those of us in the diaspora and the Iranians inside Iran, from what you hear from them. Tell me first about you. How have you been processing the last couple of months?
I think, like everybody else, Ranjan, it's been challenging in terms of containing and holding the space for both trauma and hope. Grief and celebration, it's overwhelming, it's challenging, and I think it's been the same for me. I've been having a very hard time managing lots of the intake, both emotionally, psychologically, but I'm doing my best.
How does it feel personally as a woman, as someone who came from Iran, to see we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but to see the success of this revolution in the sense that they haven't been able to quash it, and it seems to keep growing, and the defiance of the women and men in Iran to keep this going, especially the young people. How does that feel to you?
It feels empowering. I've had my fair share of exposure to what is going on in Iran in terms of this religious police, this morality police. I have a hard time calling it a morality police. Like, what is that? So I've had quite a bit of exposure to that growing up as a young woman in Iran. So seeing how young women are standing up to that kind of violence and oppression is empowering, even from this distance. So it makes me feel proud, but I'm worried. I'm worried for them. It breaks my heart to see all the oppression.
Yeah. I want to read something that you posted in terms of this collision of feelings that we're experiencing. You said at one point, on a post, I guess a couple of weeks ago, you said, as a therapist, for several years, I can attest that we Iranians have been living through a state of trauma, grief, chronic anxiety, hopelessness, desperation, and mistrust as a result. And now we are witnessing how that pain and trauma have turned into hope, courage, defiance, perseverance, unity, and antagonism. That's a lot to say.
It is a lot.
And it's an interesting... I mean, one wants to believe this transformation. Tell me what you mean in that statement.
I think we can talk about that in two parts where there are overlaps for sure. But for people inside Iran, this empowering phase, women finding their authority, their voice, after history, the long-standing history of misogyny and gynophobia, and having problems with gender in society and in all the laws and everything. So I think in terms of finding that kind of autonomy and authority, that's beautiful to see. But on the other hand, as I've noted, the anxiety and the uncertainty is also an integral part of this. And for people outside Iran, I don't remember this level of unity and solidarity. I think this is beautiful to see, this closeness between Iranians outside Iran. And also, one thing that's very interesting for us in the diaspora is that I've noticed that lots of people, Iranian people, they've had a hard time expressing and exposing their Iranian identity to people in the West. And no fault to them, it's been a survival mechanism just because of how there's so much going on against Iran. We have all the Islamophobic perspectives. We have the travel ban in our history. So there has been so much. So people have had to somehow hide their identity to be able to integrate into the society. And that is gradually fading away. Now I'm seeing a lot of people, and they talk about that in their sessions. They're now feeling a sense of integrity and respect as an Iranian, and it empowers them to express who they are, to identify as an Iranian, to find their voice again. So it's quite a healing journey for them. But on a different note, there's always this survival guilt that I'm living in this safety, I'm living with this comfortable life in this safe environment, and I cannot really contribute to what is going on in that sense in the streets of Iran. So, it's challenging, as you said. It's just too much to take at the same time.
Let me untangle. You said a few things there. Let me see if I can address them one by one. And I did an opening essay to our show, I guess about a month ago, saying the rebirth of Iranian pride, which is speaking to that point that you just made. And the most amazing part of that, and the reaction to that essay, is that it's not just, I was writing it from the perspective of an Iranian and the diaspora who now feels this level of emancipation of being able to say I'm Iranian, be proud of being Iranian, and without all the layers of having to issue disclaimers and justify, and we are not Ayatollahs and all of that. But the amazing part of it was to hear from people inside Iran that they're feeling this way too. Young people saying, for most of my life I didn't like being Iranian, or I was ashamed, or I hated living here, and all of a sudden I'm feeling this pride. So that's been quite a journey. When we talk about, so let me take what you said. I think there's 3 points there I want to pick up on. The first thing, when you were talking about those confluence of feelings, is that normal in therapy, or is that kind of fucked up, that we are on the one hand feeling heartbroken and anxious and we can't sleep and we're doom scrolling through our Instagram accounts, and on the other hand we're feeling excitement and hope and inspiration?
No, I think it's the nature of any emotionally and psychologically loaded situation. We have to experience the two sides of the coin, the pleasant feelings and the unpleasant, difficult feelings at the same time. So it's the nature of any psychological milestone, let's say. So is it good? Is it bad? Of course, it's good in so many ways, and it's not in some other ways. And there's no other way than through it. We have to go through it. We have to process, and we have to digest. So that is the nature of it.
Sometimes and the fact that it feels a little schizophrenic, not the official version of schizophrenic, but if I can use the term loosely, the fact that it feels that way is not something to be concerned about. It's strange. You can ask any Iranian right now, do it as your own thought experiment, how you feeling about the last couple of months, and you will get something ranging from oh my God, isn't it horrible, I'm devastated, to isn't it amazing? And they're both coming from the same place. Ironically, they're not seeing it in different ways. It's something that we're feeling both of those things.
Absolutely. It's traumatizing and it's healing. It's both. It's traumatizing each and every day. When I scroll down my phone and I see pictures, there's so much going on, and constantly we're exposed to pictures and videos and data and everything, and it's constant. So it's triggering. It makes me feel extremely anxious and this sense of not having any control and all of that, and it's scary. But on a different note, I see people dancing on the streets. I see these young girls courageously, and it makes my heart smile, and I experience both at the same time, and it is beautiful, but it is also painful.
Is it different? Is this trauma different? If we accept the premise, I certainly do, that your premise that we've been living through 43 years of trauma, or at least elements within those 43 years, repression, war, social limitations, restrictions, seeing horrible deaths and detainments and all of that. The kind of things we're seeing now that we have great access to, kids, dying, horrible images of injuries sustained by somebody being shot. Those images I'm thinking of, we see of the body with all the bullet wounds on it, etc. Is that somehow a different kind of trauma because this is happening within the context of a defiant revolution, because there is hope associated with it? Is it different from the way we would have processed seeing something a few years ago, just seeing executions or more bad news out of Iran? I'm not sure if I articulated that well, but maybe you know what I'm saying.
I think it's quite different, and you nailed it, Jian. In a sense, this one has hope in it, this one has direction in it, and this one is empowering. So in that sense, it's very different. Trauma, in a sense, is about losing control. That you get stuck in a situation that you feel you've lost control over a situation, and you don't have the psychological capacity to contain it, to digest it, and to live through it. That's the definition of trauma. But now we are living through a phase that you actually are refinding a sense of power and a strength and control over a situation. So in that sense, because of having that direction, it is very different.
You mentioned trauma and healing, the two sides of a coin. Last week when I was in Istanbul, we interviewed someone named Mehrdad Ahmadpour, who does some spiritual kind of work and yoga. She's a yoga teacher, a yogi, etc. And she talked about this, also a member of the Iranian diaspora, of course. She talked about what's happening right now, like the revolution in Iran and the reaction and interaction of the diaspora as a collective healing. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was an amazing point because, and she even, I think, added that as accelerated as all that's happening inside Iran is right now, so is our healing accelerating. You know, it is taking something this big, this epic, and this global, but because of the nature of all of that, it's undoing some of the trauma. It's allowing us to heal as a collective in a profound way that could otherwise take decades. If things weren't happening the way they are. Speak to me about that. Tell me about how you see this as a potential healing moment for all of us as Iranians.
It is healing, Jian, in a way that is not undoable anymore. For example, inside Iran, you can never even imagine young women or women going back to how things were like 2 years ago. You know, they found this sense of authority and autonomy, and that I can have a voice here. I can stand up for myself. Nobody can take it back. There's no going back from this point to how it used to be, even if this movement ends today, which it won't. But psychologically, socially, and culturally, something has changed forever. And the same for us in the diaspora. You know, we've found this voice as an Iranian, and we say it with integrity and honor, and we're happy about it, that the world now knows that we are different than our government and all the pictures they had in mind, all the media and everything. It was about the government, but we are the people, and this is the definition of who we are. You know, lots of my non-Iranian clients have been talking to me that they knew that I'm Iranian, and how they didn't have any idea about how Iranian women are inside Iran. And they talk to me about it. They express how surprised they are to see this reality. There is no going back from that. So there is a good level of healing in all of that.
There's something that has been brought up a couple of times. Negin Parsa was talking about this in our interview last week. Another professor that we had on the show last week. We're talking about also the role of the power of women in the front in Iran right now, and the brave women who have become the sort of iconic images of this revolution, but also the role of men in kind of undoing stereotypes about being Iranian men in their support, in their sort of blanket support for women, and supporting in a knowing way that this is women in the front, you know, that men are not sort of seemingly. I've not heard yet an Iranian man who supports this revolution say, no, put a man on the poster. You know, everybody's saying, no, the woman is on the poster and we're supporting them. That's something psychologically and spiritually that I'm not even sure could happen in America. I mean, that's a very a real moment of pride in terms of the way Iranians inside Iran and in the diaspora are doing this. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. And, you know, this is a very progressive movement in the way you just described it. It's very progressive, that women-led movement, and men are not, you know, this is interesting because most of the feminist movement is about women talking about their rights or whatever, but this is men supporting them. They do not alienate men from this movement. Men are a part of it, and they're supporting them as the second role. So everybody's accepted that women are the leader here. This is a women-led movement, but men are happily accompanying this beautiful movement. So in that, it's a very progressive movement. Seems like there hasn't been anything like that.
Not just happily accompanying them, dying. A lot, the majority of the people being killed are men who are bravely putting themselves out there as well, but with full knowledge that this is a women-led movement. I mean, the whole thing is quite beautiful in terms of that unity inside Iran that you've talked about.
And particularly coming from a patriarchal society, this is the structure. So we see how this is fundamentally being challenged.
Let me ask you about something. When you talk about, you said earlier, you had witnessed or noticed or lauded the unity of the diaspora. You did say, you actually posted something recently that was making a separate point from that, or maybe a different point, because you talked about seeing more unity inside Iran than in the diaspora. And you said that you were a little disheartened by some of what's happened in the diaspora in terms of people pointing fingers at each other or shaming Gugush, or I don't know. Talk to me about the elements of disunity you've seen outside of Iran and why that's problematic for you.
I think we do, us in the diaspora, we have some uncomfortable feelings that we are containing, that we are not fully aware of. And just subconsciously, we're just redirecting them, displacing them onto each other. And sometimes because of how overwhelming these can be, we are exposed to the news, but we don't have much control of what to do with them or how to direct them. So there's too much to take in and digest and not react. So some of the reactions are not really helpful, to say the least, are not adaptive mechanisms of reacting to unpleasant emotions. As examples, we disqualify lots of the efforts so many people have made throughout the years, and we somehow there's manifestations of extreme acts of even violence towards some of the people. I just posted something about Nasrin Sotoudeh, which is this prominent Iranian lawyer, and she is in prison because of her outstanding fights. And you cannot imagine some of the replies I got about this post, some of the disrespectful replies. So, it's just, I think the emotions are all over the place. And I try to take it with a grain of salt, knowing that sometimes we might react irrational to some of the abnormalities that we experience. And it might take time for us to gradually settle in reactions. So I think.
But why do you think that's happening more in the diaspora than inside Iran?
This is my assumption. I'm not living in Iran, but what I'm seeing or what I'm hearing from people inside Iran, it seems to be a more foundational layer of unity between them. I haven't seen as much of reactions like that inside Iran, to be honest. I see more support.
But I'm asking why you think that is. If you were to speculate, why are they, they're the ones who are at ground zero there. Why are they not sending you nasty messages about Nasrin Sotoudeh, but some guy in Washington or a woman in Australia is?
I think that these are just assumptions. They need lots of research to really identify what is going on. That's what I mean by unity. Lots of people thought that, okay, for people like Fars people, from Baluch people, from like Kurd and Azeri, they don't feel belong to one another. They don't feel that sense of being one. And they don't have that sense of being an Iranian as an identity. They felt that, okay, we are separate identities. But this is what we're seeing. I think in so many ways, people inside Iran have found that kind of mechanism to support one another. Why it's happening, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, the point was made by Cameron Khansarinian on Monday, who said... they're all chanting the same things. The folks from Balochistan, the folks from Kurdistan, the folks from Tehran, they're all on the same page inside Iran, which is amazing. It's very, very powerful to witness that. Don't buy the hype about all the separation or divisions, etc. On that note, you've said let's practice being a kind of shelter for each other. How do we do that? What does that mean?
And I think we need to become better at having more tolerance, at practicing democracy in between ourselves. Providing the space to talk and just hear each other out. That I think we might have an internalized dictatorship inside us in so many ways because of years of dictatorship. And we need to gradually practice that kind of democracy, that some people might have different capacities, might have different mechanisms, and we need to build that tolerance amongst ourselves. That's the only way. If we want somebody else to be more engaged in this movement, then shaming the person will not do it. We need to provide the space to what we say in therapy is providing a containing space, which means this is a space that everybody can be a part of, and differences are accepted. You don't have to dissolve. You don't have to become one. You can have differences, and there's room for everybody.
Before I let you go, tell me what you've observed on a professional level in terms of the conversations you have. Obviously, you don't have to name names or give details, but the conversations you have in therapy sessions in terms of your clients. I know a majority of the people that you work with in terms of that you work as a psychologist or a therapist with are Iranian, both inside and outside of Iran. How have the conversations, how have the sessions that you do changed in the last couple of months, or have they?
They have changed dramatically. I think this first happened 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, when the Ukrainian plane crash happened. That was the first time that all conversations were around that topic because of the intensity of the trauma. And that gradually faded away. And now this is the second time that I'm experiencing this intensity of presence of both trauma and hope, these dark and hopeful days. So almost all conversations, everybody's daily life is somehow revolving around what's going on. It's very interesting. That's how it's impacting couple relationships. Lots of women who had a hard time expressing themselves to their husbands are now finding their voice to express themselves and to voice their opinions. Fascinating to see. So it has changed both on a conscious level that people talk about it, and they have, some of them are experiencing debilitating anxiety over what's going on. So both consciously and subconsciously through these underlying layers, lots have changed and are changing for us Iranians.
It's is there anything that has surprised you in your sessions?
I had read extensively about this Generation Z, about this young generation. I had read about how they've been exposed to social media, how they're more vocal, how they're more aware of their rights. I had read about that extensively over the past few years, but witnessing it was a whole different scenario, especially in the context of Iran. That gives me goosebumps. Like, it's beautiful to see. I just love how women from an Eastern culture who has lived with intergenerational oppression and suppression, they're now finding their voice this courageously. So this has been quite a surprise for me.
Not just Generation Z, but Z, but the next one too. I mean, we're talking about 15-year-olds who are leading this thing to a certain extent. I mean, it's mind-blowing and really, really makes one proud of them.
Courage is spontaneous for sure. We are seeing every day people are joining more and more to this movement.
Thank you, Yasamin. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to hear your insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Jian.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Of the morning, I keep forgetting the smell of the warm sun. somewhere else. I live in a town where you can't smell a thing. You watch your feet for cracks in the pavement.
This is a special edition of Roqe, episode 214. I'm Jian Ghomeshi in Toronto. My next guest is a lifelong student of football, a big fan, and an expert of the game. Mehrdad Ahmadpour is an Iranian documentary filmmaker behind the award-winning doc Bad Silence. He's the man behind a football website in Farsi called Student of the Game, and he's done a series of beautiful videos called The Art of Football. Here to talk about the World Cup, Team Melli, and more. Mehrdad Ahmadpour joins me from Toronto today as well. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jian. Thank you for inviting me. I really want to talk about Team Melli these days because it's just 10 days left to the World Cup.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. I always do, Mehrdad Jan. And let me start there. That the World Cup is less than 2 weeks away, and with all that's happening in Iran, does it feel surreal that your favorite global tournament is about to begin and you are posting things like, I have little interest in this?
First of all, I have to say that, Jian, what we are witnessing these days, the Iranian uprising, is actually the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Despite of all the wounds, all the pains that we are facing with, but it is beautiful. It's breathtaking. All the photos are coming from Iran, the braveness of people, the music, the artworks, the solidarity from people outside, from the diaspora. But all of us experiencing different type of emotion, different type of mood from morning to night, like from anger to love, like depressed, and then being excited. It's very paradoxical, and that's how I feel about the World Cup as well, about Team Melli in World Cup.
Yeah.
Like very different emotions.
Yeah. It's a very confusing time. I've been struggling with. I've tried about 3 times to do an opening essay that I've written. I do these openings to the show to do something about the World Cup and Team Melli, and I end up scribbling over it, going, no, I can't, because I'm confused. I'm confused about where exactly I stand, and everybody I reach out to feels that same confusion in the sense that. One of the few joyful spots, one could argue, of being Iranian in the last couple of decades, or if not longer, has been when we come together around Team Melli and they're playing a game against Argentina and they almost win, or whatever the case may be, and there's this feeling of pride and of camaraderie and sisters and brothers together. But this is a very, very different scenario and a very, very different situation. Did you have a position dating back a few weeks or months? There have been some folks, including some prominent Iranians who work in the sports field, saying, Aslan, Iran should have been banned. As soon as this revolution began and the regime is killing people, Iran should not even be allowed to play in the World Cup. Did you have that position?
Kind of. I have to explain it. As you said, it's very surreal. Team Melli is very important because it was always been the symbol, the embodiment of the solidarity as a nation. It has a huge capacity to unify us as a nation, as it did before in 1997. I was in Iran at the time after the Melbourne victory, when people celebrated all together, regardless of their ethnics, their thoughts, their beliefs. Team Melli have this potential to do that. But this Team Melli, I would say, a bit disappointing, Jian. Along these years, we are all growing up, we are all learning. Learning through those social events, those social reforms. I, as a fan, at some point learned that I won't enter to the stadium where my sister, my wife, is not welcome to enter. 10 years ago, we were not aware of our basic rights, but now we are. So we have to do something. We need to change our behavior, and that's what we expected from the fans, from Team Milli, from the players, from the supporters, from not the federation because they are all corrupted, but I mean the people in football, from fans to players. So I'm telling you, I'm kind of disappointed because and angry of Team Milli. Even before this uprising, we were talking about we talked about that in the last show that I was invited in. That when security police invaded women in Mashhad, because they're simply trying to enter to the stadium. They all bought the legal tickets.
Yes.
They had their tickets in their hands, and they invaded them with the tear gas. And players knew that, and they didn't do anything meaningful. I mean, by meaningful, I mean, for example, wearing a T-shirt under their jersey, writing, for example, جای خواهرم اینجا خالی است, or this kind of message. They used to have this T-shirt. For example, they one of them had this message under their jersey. What was it? It was تنها راه نجات اطاعت از رهبری است. It's ridiculous. I mean, it was like the only way of survive is to obey Khamenei.
Right.
So we at the time we need them to be with us, to be part of this part of this uprising. But after this recent uprising, if you remember, the first day, all of us are waiting from footballer to do something at the first days. You remember that, to respond. Since one of the most important celebrities who support this uprising was Ali Karimi.
Yes.
So I thought that maybe the players could follow them. A few days passed and they did nothing, absolutely nothing. It was just Sardar Azmoun, if I remember well. He posted something on Instagram and then he deleted that. I know that they put pressure on the players. They were in
obviously they do. It's not the same as I mean, we should say here that sometimes I feel like we kind of go, well, you know, you'll hear like some indie Iranian musician in San Francisco say, well, I canceled my show. Why isn't Team Melli doing something? And it's like, well, it's a different circumstance in terms of the pressures, right? The implications are different, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I won't expect to do something like to cancel or
not turn up to the game or something.
Yeah, exactly. But do something meaningful. I mean, as something that Elnaz Rekabi did. You remember and then Nilufar Mardani, or the guy in beach football, beach soccer. What was his name? Sorry, I forgot his name.
We know what you mean, though.
Said Piramoun. Yeah,
that's right.
Said
yes,
Piramoun.
Yes.
Yeah, who had this gesture of
cutting his hair.
Cutting hair. Yeah, it was very beautiful. I mean, it's meaningful to do something. It means that we are with you. We are supporting them.
I don't want to get sidelined with this. It's something that we just talked about in our Roqe Roundtable too. But I also do feel like you're absolutely right. Elnaz Rekabi, or you know, just in the last days, Taraneh Alidoosti, who I know you know and I've spoken to before. I mean, that is such an act of profound courage, what she's done to come out and, given her profile, take a stand the way she does. But I don't know if it's fair to expect others to do that. You know, I mean, you know that this can put her in great danger, great trouble, etc. And I don't know if it's fair for me to expect some football player who happens to be on Team Melli to do the same. What do you think?
I mean, I don't expect everybody to to have this courage to do a real thing. I mean, real meaningful thing. For example, in Taraneh Alidoosti case, I don't expect all the actors or actresses in Iran to do this thing, but I expect them to support her, to repost her, and you know what I mean. And for example, the players in Team Melli posted something on Instagram that it was very vague, very ambiguous, not clear. They said, please don't shoot people. We are all sad. We are all, we all feel bad these days. This is bullshit. I mean, you feel bad? Really? We feel very, very well. We feel very excited. We feel power at this time. I mean, I was saying that despite of all the wounds, all the pains that we are experiencing, but we feel really excited because we need you to support us in a real way, because Team Melli is very important. Team Melli could have a very good impact. I have a cousin in Iran, and who is very conservative, and he said, I can't do anything. But when Sardar posted this thing on Instagram, I will go to the street. I mean, they can take huge segment of the society with them. It's very, and specifically in the World Cup, because the World Cup is the most watched phenomenon in the media. So it would have a very good impact. So somebody tweeted on Twitter that we may have some artwork. For example, imagine that one of the players, Ali Reza Behranband, could go to the pitch and handcuff his wrist to the goalpost, remembering Khoda Noor.
Let me get to what they could do. Let's get to what they could do. Okay, let's just catch up to where. First of all, if you don't mind, let me just take 2 steps back and and actually drill down into something that you were talking about. I wonder if it's possible. See, it's still interesting to me how there's been a transformation in terms of the way we see Team Melli and the expectations. Because, to be fair, in 2018, the last World Cup, when Iranians around the world were filling, in the diaspora, were filling bars and gathering spaces, etc., to cheer on Team Melli, this regime was in place, this killer regime in Iran. Women were not allowed in the stadiums. There was no pretense that reformism was dead by that point. So what? And in fact, there was almost a feeling. I'm not sure how to exactly say this, but it almost felt subversive to be supporting Team Melli. Look at these handsome guys. We're normal Iranians. Look, the rest of the world can see that we're like everybody else. We're not ayatollahs. We're not mullahs. We don't agree with that. We're engaging in this international thing with these players. It's that it's somehow even a form of defiance. When did that shift? Like, when did it go from that to this team, the existence of this team represents the regime, and we need them to speak out?
It's a very good point. As I said before, that we are all in a somehow learning process. We are being aware of our basic rights. That, for example, I remember that 25 years ago, when the first time they let women into the stadium because they want to celebrate Iran Team Melli back from Melbourne. They just let them to enter to the stadium just to cheer and to thank to the players, and nothing happened. But at the time, we were not aware of our basic rights. That this is normal, so we could live as a normal people in the world, like everybody can be together in the stadium. But now everything has been changed because after this learning process, after this uprising, we think that maybe it was not right. Because I told you before that it's been 10 years, 12 years that I never go to the stadium, because I think that it's not fair.
Right.
So, and this time we need a Team Melli who represents all the all segments of the
Right.
society,
Right.
not being a propaganda for the regime. And people now feeling that if they go to Qatar without supporting this uprising, it will just it's not representing us. I believe the World Cup finally be a place for the regime to spread their hateful propaganda through Team Melli. If people see something meaningful about their act, about this uprising, they would support them in a way that world never seen it before. Because, for example, in the 2018 that you mentioned, because I was in Canada at the time, every single game I went, here is the multicultural country, that I went to a bar, specific bar to the country, like for example, when Colombia is playing against Brazil, I found some Brazilian bar and went there. And then I went to 22 different nationalities, and then Iranian was among the most passionate fans in the world. You know that. And then we have this potential in ourselves to support them as we did before. But we need their support before. That's why that we have this rule for us that, okay, we won't support them because you didn't support us. That's the logic, I guess.
Let me say two things and then you can respond to them. One is that there's so many layers of difficulty when it comes to this World Cup. First of all, it's fucked up because it's in November. It's disrupting all the other league games, and just as a football fan, it's very strange to get our heads around that. Secondly, the issues around Qatar and the exploitation and deaths of migrant workers and the anti-LGBT policies in Qatar, and all of those issues, which frankly are not brand new. I did a show back in 2013 about this, on the CBC. I mean, people have been saying this for years about Qatar, and now we're 2 weeks away. All of those issues exist, but I would also put an asterisk on that and say that, again, in 2018, the World Cup was in Russia, and we all watched and celebrated, and Putin was in charge, and FIFA was corrupt, and the invasion of Crimea had taken place 4 years earlier. So what part of that is okay if Qatar is not? So that's something that I think we have to contend with these international competitions, that any nation state that hosts it, there's going to be issues, and certainly there is with Qatar, and it makes it very confusing. But the second part, what you're talking about with Team Melli as well, it's certainly true that if they do nothing, in other words, if Team Melli goes and plays at the World Cup and there's no act of defiance, or there's no nod to the protests, or there's no support for the revolution, nothing like that. In other words, if it's business as usual, it will just feel so out of step with the will of the Iranian people at this point that it would be nothing short of a slap in the face. That's certainly what it feels like. It's like that nothing can be business as usual at a time when kids are being shot and the Majlis is passing a law that executions are okay if somebody expresses their freedom of expression. That is not usual. That is not allowed, and this should not be business as usual. So it's a conundrum for Team Melli, isn't it? Because the players, the coaches, the team, I don't know how these decisions are going to get made, but it feels like they have to do something, don't they?
Yeah, of course. Before that, I kind of understanding you as an Arsenal fan, because you have the momentum now in the Premier League, that how sad you are because now the World Cup is happening.
Yes, it's destroying our number one place. But yes, go ahead. Yes.
But apart from that, that's what I'm saying. We really need to, for example, the first game is against England. If we really need to see something from them to act, I mean, it's not enough for us to just like having the black wristband or this kind of thing. We need a real act to impress the world. And if we see something, we just be sure that people will support back them. I mean, I'm thinking that the players, Iranian players, are doing a very having a very bad strategic mistake, because the only thing that they have are the fans who are very passionate, It's very important. Imagine that they are in the World Cup, and because I know that like 15,000 of 15,000 of people canceled their ticket to Qatar because they don't like to support them. And then when they go to the World Cup, they face with some pro-regime fans with those ugly faces and bloody hands cheering for them. It's not a joy for them,
right,
to win a game. And we are not expecting like other players like from England to do something.
right.
I was thinking to send a message to Harry Kane to ask them, asking him to wear an underwear called #Mahsa Amini after a potential goal celebration. But it's not fair. I need our player to do something. Mind
you, the football world did do it for Ukraine. I hate to keep making those comparisons, but as I've said a few times on this program, I mean, the Premier League logo changed to the Parcham of Ukraine, like it changed to the flag of Ukraine in supporting Ukraine. So it's not extraordinary that other countries could support,
but
there's a pranudent for that.
This double standard. They always have this double standard. You remember that the last World Cup in 2018, when Granit Xhaka and Xherdan Shaqiri, two players from Kosovo who were playing for Switzerland, scored against Serbia, showed that they showed a specific celebration, and they banned for the next two games because they said it's political message. We don't like political message. We always have this double standard in FIFA, in UEFA. And I think that is happening for Russia and Iran. I mean, they ban Russia and they don't ban Iran because they're not very serious about that. Isn't it sad if we are expecting the other players, players from other countries, to do something for us? I feel a bit sad about that.
We know they're not going to be potentially arrested or detained or even executed or something, right? That's there are different implications. But I mean, what can
But do you think that our players will be arrested?
I don't know.
No, I don't think
I have no idea what would
do this.
You don't think you don't think that they would somehow be punished for acting out?
The price will be so high. They even don't arrest. They didn't arrest El Nazar Kabi or Saeed Piramoun for that. I mean, but for example, for Mehdi Taremi, it's very high. The price is very high. They don't do that, and they are playing outside Iran. They have their their income outside Iran. I mean, the price for them is not that. The price for the players is not that high. That's why that we are expecting them to do something, to do a real meaningful thing for us.
Have you heard the suggestion? I've seen it going around in Persian Twitter and stuff for the players to kneel before the game with the U.S. And that would be some sort of demonstration against the regime. Have you seen that suggestion?
While the anthem is playing,
yeah.
Is it legal? I'm not sure if it's legal.
I don't
they
know.
Really can do it.
I don't know.
But they can bend the knee before.
I mean, it's live. You can do anything live for a few seconds before the cameras cut away, right? I mean, they can certainly not sing. They can boo the anthem. They can obviously not celebrate. That's been something that's been done by some. So, there was that Istiqlal victory where they didn't celebrate winning the cup. I mean, would those things be meaningful for you?
From the players or
the players?
Yeah. Of course, it's meaningful if they boo the anthem, but they won't do that. I mean, this is the very big opportunity for us to be the nation voice. You remember that last Cannes Film Festival when Asghar Farhadi didn't say anything about Khuzestan at the time. It was 2021. And then people kind of sad about and kind of angry with Asghar Farhadi because they were saying that you have this position now to be our voice. Now, I mean, World Cup is very important. Billions of people are watching, like 2 billion people will watch the World Cup semi-final, for example. Iran won't get there, but I mean, even 1 billion people watching the Iran-US or Iran against England. It's a very good opportunity for them to be their people's voice. That's why that we are expecting them to do an act, to do a meaningful act. I mean, by meaningful act, I mean, I said that something that Elnaz Rekabi did, something that Saeed Piramoon did, putting like having a T-shirt under their jersey, writing something like Zan Zendegi Azadi or Mahsa. I mean, this kind of thing. Not singing the anthem it's nothing. Do you think that is it meaningful? Like just. I mean,
it doesn't seem that meaningful to me, but I don't know. Maybe maybe I don't understand the implications for an Iranian anthem singing. I don't know how normal that is in terms of the inside Iran football leagues and stuff. But frankly, not singing it doesn't seem like that a lot of times football players don't sing the anthems because they don't sing very well or something, you know. So I don't know. You know,
but let me ask you something.
Sure,
sorry
sure.
to interrupt you. In the first day of Uprising, first days, like the first week,
yes.
Did you expect, or were you waiting for footballers to do something? We all thinking of that.
Yes, I remember the discussion began almost right away. Yeah.
And the thing that they did, you were happy with that?
What did they do?
Just posting some very vague message on Instagram.
No.
And they celebrate even in a friendly game
Yeah.
against Uruguay. They celebrate. I mean,
to be fair, in the first week or two, we didn't exactly know where this was going. It wasn't. It hadn't crystallized into the revolution that it is now. There were, it felt like, oh, maybe this is going to be another Aubon. The inspiration and hope of all the things that you spoke so beautifully about at the beginning of this interview, the Shervin song to the artwork to the unity around the diaspora, all of that hadn't crystallized yet. So, but I agree that after week 2 or 3, these questions have been relevant, not just for football players. And look, we had somebody on the show last week on our roundtable from Istanbul, and she was very unimpressed with the actions of Istiklal, not celebrating in the end, because she said, and she's from the creative sector, she works in film, etc. She said, why is the expectation that musicians shouldn't play gigs and actors shouldn't work and filmmakers shouldn't be making films right now, but when it comes to sports they should play the game and we'll just be happy if they don't sing the anthem or something? These kind of double standards within different sectors of Iranian society exist as well. I don't know if you have a position around that.
Yeah, you mentioned Istiklal, and it was it's a very good point, because they created a very, very powerful picture when they just had this gesture, and then they didn't celebrate for the victory, for the trophy that they got. And it was very. This is what I'm meaning by meaningful act. Because the image that they create. And then did they punish them? Not at all. Nothing happened. Nothing very serious happened to them.
But then what's the importance of it? I mean, just to take on Nafise's words from last week, just to paraphrase what she said. She said, this is meaningless. I'm not necessarily saying that myself, but I'm how do you respond to her saying that? Did it change anything that they did that?
Yeah, I think that it opened the way. It really opened the way. This act, or Elnaz Rekabi's act, opened the way for Team Melli to do something. You know what I mean? Because this probably hasn't that much impact on the society or on the world, but they opened the way to the other players, to the other footballers to do something. And then when they do the same thing in the World Cup, don't celebrate after goal, or having a message, or doing something meaningful, it has a good impact. Every step that we take from all segments of the society, from Istiqlal, from Persepolis, from all the players. We need to do. We need to take our step. We need to to do our responsibility about this uprising.
Okay, let me ask you this then, and let me perhaps wrap up with this. I thank you as ever for coming on, brother. Look, let me just actually issue a disclaimer here, which is that I'm asking the questions and in some cases playing devil's advocate because I really don't know myself. I am really confused about exactly how this should play out in terms of the right thing to do. If the mission, if the goal, as I believe it should be, is to support those young people in Iran, those women and men in Iran who are leading this revolution, what is the best thing that we can do to support them, and how does that fit into the World Cup? That's the sort of challenge, and I don't know the answer. So let me ask you. What should we do? I mean, I canvassed as many friends and family as I could over the last few days, saying, "What do you think?" And I didn't really get a lot of solid answers. A few people said, and a few people that I really respect their opinions, who've been very active in this revolution, said, "I'm waiting to see what folks like Ali Karimi and Ali Dai tell us. I'm waiting to see what is decided in terms of what we should all collectively do. Should we all not watch? Should we all stay quiet? Should we all celebrate? Should we all? Do you have any sense of what you are going to do? I mean, when that first game is played."
Wow, it's a very different. It's a very tough question, because I couldn't even imagine that how on earth it could be possible that Team Melli is playing, and then I don't care. It's very surreal, as you said. And then I was thinking of with myself that okay, for example, I was thinking that okay, I won't watch the game, and I was telling myself that okay, what's gonna happen if you don't watch the game?
Right.
What's the impact? Okay, what's the result that you want to get out of it? And then actually I can't even answer this question because we are all kind of desperate about the situation that we are stuck in. Because I think that okay, now Team Melli is playing, and probably when the game started, we can't even decide which side are we supporting. And then at the end of the day, I have to go back to the quote from Jose Trajano. I said in the previous session I was with you, and he said that when Brazil was playing in World Cup 1970 in Mexico, we went there to cheer for the opponents because Brazil was under dictatorship and players like Pelé didn't support us. But when the referee started to blow their whistle, we couldn't do that. We support Brazil because in football everything is getting changed. We can't think. We think with our hearts, and I even can't imagine that I would be happy if England or US or Wales scored against Iran. It's a tough question, and I don't have any answer for that. But I personally think in this situation we have to believe this uprising, because people could imagine in the first days that it's gonna happen. We are let me talk it in Farsi, the last sentences. همه ما یه جوری باور کردیم که برای چند روز باور کردیم که این اتفاق خواهد افتاد، این انقلاب به نتیجه خواهد رسید. بعد به خاطر همین ما دیگه نمیتونیم، چون اینو تصور کردیم، دیگه نمیتونیم فکر کنیم که این نیست. واقعا من فکر میکنم که تنها کاری که میتونن بازیکنای تیم ملی هم بکنن اینه که تصور کنن که این اتفاق میفته. اون وقت چه اکتی خواهند داشت؟ That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you. And by the way, well, yeah, I was saying actually last week that it's so interesting how I can imagine. I don't know the details. I can imagine, but this is why I believe that this is the revolution. This is the time. I can imagine this succeeding. I can imagine the fall of the regime. And I can imagine, again, I don't know exactly what happens, who's in charge, or who the organizers are in the future. What the people of Iran, inside Iran, decide is up to them, and it's hard to imagine necessarily. But I can imagine that happening. I can no longer imagine it not happening, in the sense that I don't see how you could turn this back. I really don't. And that's very powerful to me, to not even be able to imagine this regime retaining its power with the amount of, and the volume and the quality and quantity of people who are speaking against this regime inside Iran and in the diaspora. So I hear you, and that's a very powerful way to put it. The last thought I'll throw out there, just as a football fan and somebody who, if in another universe would be planning which pub we're going to be watching the World Cup at, you and I, devoid of any of these concerns or thoughts. It's going to be interesting because I also am a Canadian citizen. And a British citizen, and both England and Canada are in the World Cup, and I have a lot of pride for the Canadian football team being there in the World Cup as well. And I don't know if the Canadian football team should suffer, not have fans for like me because I'm upset at Iran. So the whole thing has so many layers. Should Iran not make it to the second or third round? Do I go through the World Cup with the same enthusiasm? Can I even summon it at a time like right now? I don't feel like going to parties. All I can think about is what's going on in Iran. Am I going to feel like celebrating England winning? I do watch my Arsenal games each week, and I am happy about how the team is doing, but even that doesn't feel like the way it would if there wasn't a revolution happening that, for all the beauty you've spoken about, is also devastating as we see people getting killed, right? So I guess we're going to find out pretty quickly in the next 2 weeks or so or more all of the answer to all these questions, aren't we?
And on top of that, I still have this hope that Iranian players could do something in the first game and people get back to them. And then it's going to be a very, very, very exciting World Cup for us if they do that. I still have this hope. Do you?
Yes, actually, I have the same hope. Of course, I have that hope. Yeah, I do. I don't know how it plays out, but I think you're right that the will would be there, the will of the people to carry this team on their shoulders if they were to do something significant. It would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be very amazing. I'm waiting for that day.
Mehrdad,
just 10, 11 days, yeah.
Thank you as ever. I know you're in a car, hidden in a car doing this in the middle of your day. I appreciate the time you took, and your perspective is always valuable to us. Thank you for this, man.
You're welcome, Jian. Thank you for inviting me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thought that never changes remains a stupid lie. It's never been quite the same. No hearing or breathing, no movement, no color, just silence. The rise and fall of shame.
This is a special special edition of Roqe, episode 214, The Uprising. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. My final guest today is an Iranian documentary photographer and filmmaker who's also currently a senior lecturer at the Department of New Media of Nishantasi University in Turkey. Nafise Motlaq started her career as a photojournalist in Iran before having to leave to be able to do the kind of work she had aspired to, and lived and worked in Malaysia for many years and received her PhD in mass communications. She is currently working on a new documentary. I met up with Nafise a few days ago on the waterfront on the European side of Istanbul near the Galata Bridge. If you hear some noises, they're the crowds and the boats around us. This is our conversation about the Iranian Revolution of 2022 from the proximity and perspective of an Iranian in Turkey. It's really nice to see you here. Thanks for doing this. You've been a journalist, an academic. You've lived in different parts of the world. There's an interesting paradox that seems to emerge with Istanbul in the sense that people come from Iran to get away from Iran, but they come here to be somewhere that seems like Iran and even has some of the same laws that they don't like when they were in Iran. Talk to me about experiencing that paradox.
I've heard this a lot from Iranian that when since they live here, when they live here, they feel like they are in Iran plus. Like it seems that what makes them leave Iran is the social freedom first. Economic-wise, Turkey is not in a good condition. Many of, religion-wise and other culturally. But the social freedom is the first thing that Iranians feel more comfortable here. And they feel like, okay, we are in Iran, but we are more free. I think this is what I've heard.
You can wear a skirt, you can dance in the club, you can drink.
Yes, that's right. That's really right.
But then when it comes to expression, and freedom of expression and dissent, it's actually more like Iran than it is like the West.
Exactly. The level of freedom that people demand is different. Maybe for a journalist, Turkey is not a really good place. This is not the freedom that they are expecting. But maybe for normal people, this is the freedom they want. They want to wear what they want. They want to drink and express themselves the way they want. And it seems that Turkey responded.
And yet it's a strange moment when there's a revolution happening an hour away from here by flight, right? I have to ask you about something I've been talking about all week, which is how strange it is to come here from a place like Toronto, where on any given day right now in any part of the city, you might see billboards of Mahsa Amini, public active support, even from politicians, for the movement in Iran, for the revolution. To come to a place that's this close to Iran, with this many Iranians here, 500,000 to 1 million, and to see pretty much nothing. How should I make sense of that?
Well, I think we should look at it in two different ways. Yes, maybe when you walk in the street in Istanbul or other cities, you don't see the sign, and because of the political restrictions, Iranians cannot express themselves here in Istanbul as much as they want. But I believe that you compare Turkey with Canada, I compare the people of Turkey with Canada. People here are so supportive. I see the support from lots of ordinary people and also very famous people, influential people, artists, stars, activists, of course. And to be honest, maybe I don't see the sign here. Maybe I cannot participate in protests regularly in Istanbul. But when I talk to people, I feel that they are paying much better. And I receive lots of support, whether from university and the grocery man in the street and the taxi drivers.
Is it different now?
Because they know the context.
Is it different in these 2 mons than it was a year ago or 2 years ago? Tell me how it's different.
Much. They open up the dialogue. This is what makes me really happy. That because the pain is the same. We are maybe in different level with some differences, but they understand how is the situation in Iran, why we don't want, and how it look like, how does it feel to be killed by morality police because of your hijab. Because it didn't happen in Turkey yet, but they smell it. They know that it could happen. They don't see that, they don't say that, but they feel our pain. And I feel in Turkey, to be honest, especially in Istanbul, with the people, I feel much more connected, and I feel so sympathy and empathy, you know.
Much more connected than
yes.
what?
I mean, you compare it with other countries in the West.
Germans,
of course,
English people.
Because of regulation, they allow you to do protests.
Yeah.
But how hard it is to engage people, real people, like go to the street,
Well,
go to the bar and talk about Iran. How many people would respond? But here they may open the discussion when you tell them that I'm Iranian. They ask you, they want to be updated. How is the situation now? And they themselves opened up the discussion about, I don't know, politics and religion and this and that, and that's really great.
These points are really, really important, and they're enlightening and kind of refreshing to hear. But surely there is a difference between a country where the Prime Minister is walking alongside Ahmed Ismailioun and a place where you're not allowed to hold a sign that's written in Persian.
Yeah.
Right.
But
but
you have people here. I mean, why people are doing protests in the street? They want to
bring
protests.
Awareness to support the kids in Iran.
Yes, they're already aware.
Well, that's an interesting one, because I've talked to a few people this week, and I had two different answers. One, that as you say, and you're not the first person to say it, there's been wonderful support from Turkish people here, basically saying you're our sister, you're our brother, we're with you, especially with regards to the revolution, and probably some kind of empathy that you're talking about. This could happen here. On the other hand, there's people who've told us it's not very much in the Turkish news. You don't see that much about what's going on in Iran, and that in conversations they've had anecdotally with non-Iranians here, Turkish folks, others, they don't know anything about what's going on, which is shocking because it's so close to here. So I hear these two things, and I don't know which one to believe.
My personal experience that I can share is that at the very beginning, the first 2 weeks before the speech of Mr. Khamenei, the news here, it was every day, long news on TV, national TV. They were talking, they were analyzing the system. But then, I cannot for sure say why, but for some political reason perhaps, they somehow limited, because they see something is happened inside Turkey, among Turkish. They didn't expect that much of reaction themselves. And you know what is the difference? Because we are close, we are neighbors, and nobody needs. We can even try right now, randomly, talking to people. You don't need to remind them Iran before revolution. Many of them, they already know.
Right.
They're following
They're not
it.
in Kentucky with no idea what a Persian is.
By the way,
right.
40 years ago, we
Right.
had revolution. Now these things, they know how the history, the background history. And because millions, hundreds, thousands of Iranians are living here, many of them are traveling here. So each and every Turkish people had this time of speaking and conversation with Iranian different classes. They see them everywhere, in the restaurant, in the shops, in the concerts and all that. So they already know who are Iranian and what situation they are and what is the background. So having of course, the protest would be beneficial for us to express ourselves, to feel connected with the rest of the world. But to be honest, I don't think that Iranian missed something by this restriction. Yes, I cannot say it's good that not have it.
Well, listen, let me say a couple things. One, we've had a series where we're interviewing young people on the front lines inside Iran. Young women in Mashhad, Shiraz, Tehran. They tell us, because I've asked them this question on the air, they tell us it makes a difference to them that people 100,000 people turn up in Berlin. So it does mean something, right?
Of course. That's why I ask you why you are doing protests. And your answer was to inform people. I said they are already people. But yes, if you are doing protests to show the unity, to support each other in a bigger scale. Of course, we
It
missed
means
that
something.
opportunity.
Yes, yes.
We missed that opportunity because of the number of Iranian and Turkish people who are willing to join. You know, many
Right.
of these protests,
Right.
as you know, they were guided, led by Turkish
Right.
people. You know.
That's because that's how they had to get permission. They couldn't get permission
Yes.
otherwise. Let me ask you about your own emotions and feelings that have been inside you for the last couple of months, because you're someone who has your own history with this regime. You're a journalist. You're a photojournalist. You almost 20 years ago basically had to leave Iran because you couldn't do the kind of work you wanted to do there. Go to Malaysia. You come here. How do you feel when you see what's going on in Iran with these young people, and the fact that it's not stopping, that it really feels like this is the revolution?
Today is the 50th day of the revolution. And I would say in the last 50 years, I'm not in a very normal status of mindset.
Last 50 days?
50 days.
Yeah.
Like when even people simply asking me, how are you, Nafise? Like it's a mixture of being sad, being really sad, and at the same time very hopeful and optimistic. Something amazing is happening in Iran, but covered with blood and suppression and violence. So like this is my feeling.
Yeah.
I'm so sad about what is happening in Iran. I'm so worried about many friends, families, all my families and friends are still in Iran. But at the same time, I'm so hopeful for the future because I see the bright path. I know
yes.
that it does not go
Yes.
somewhere wrong.
No,
It can't go somewhere wrong because people have reached. It's not about a political incident. It's not a protest after an election. It's not a protest because of the directly for politics. People are screaming. I mean, they are demanding for freedom, personal freedom.
Yeah.
They have targeted the right
Yeah.
point this time.
Yeah.
And nothing can stop them. Even they invited for dialogue and conversation, they said no. They said, no. This is what we want, regime change. And for the first time, because when you look at the previous protests, they were
99
divided.
Green Movement, Aban.
Exactly, they were divided like different classes of society. When I back home, when I was a student 20 years ago, it was during the reformist time. As a student, it was our routine to go to protest. But even my uncle didn't know about this protest. It was limited to students and like.
And you weren't necessarily saying death of the dictator.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
I remember sometimes one or two people were saying even this is too much.
Right.
You know, we just want to reform, and it is good. I'm not regret about that. If today is, what is happening today is the result of all the options that we had.
Yeah.
We have tried all
Reformism had to fail to get to this.
Yes, we have done all the peaceful. We have used all the peaceful and democratic tools, and now this is the result because they have tried. There is no. We wish we would do that. What if we've done that? We have tried all of that, and now this is what people concluded. And what I tried to point to was that previous protests were divided in different classes of society, whether you were like in workers or more cultural or this and that, it was political or economic. But this time, my heart melts when I hear the slogan "Azan Zindagi Azadi," woman, life, freedom, from different accents, different dialogues, Kurdish, Turkish, Baluch, Azeri, Fars, South, East, North, young, old, that revolution makes us more united. More united, and there are lots of potential, and of course we are so disappointed of them. Even in every regime there are few groups that maybe they think better, they are wiser, whatever. they didn't see that. They didn't see this, what they can do with that energy and the potential. So when I see this unity, and at the same time, I analyze the content of the artworks coming from Iran. Because the photographers are not allowed to be in the street officially. So illustration become the expression, the visual expression of people. And like previous time, you would see the well-known artists, established cartoonists, and all they were in charge of illustrating, But now, even students of art, non-well-known people are expressing themselves without any policy behind. They are expressing themselves. I try to look at the artworks and I compare it with previous one. In the previous protest, they were illustrating the protesters as being suppressed, victim, as a victim of the system. They were asking for, pray for Iran, help Iran. We're stuck here. We stuck here,
Right.
But this time from day one, they illustrated everything and themselves. They even ignored 20% of 100 artworks. You could see any sign of the suppressors, any military, any mullah or something. They were all just focusing on themselves.
Empowerment.
And it was like, I'm giving you some percent, more than 95% of the artwork was only one woman standing tall, calm and confident, no violence tool. So they were expressing they were demanding for their own freedom of individual freedom.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference. They have won already in their mind. It's just
And how did we get there?
the rest.
Was the 43 years necessary to get to the
experience? We have experience compared to countries that we can compare ourselves with, economic-wise, politically, religion, culturally. Iranian in these 40 years, they go through a very difficult, challenging, abnormal situation and conditions. And the experience that we have from the role of religion, what should we do, how it works, the function and everything, about the politics, about culture, education. This young generation, TikTok generation that leading this revolution are the children of my generation, a little bit older. But they have different horizon. As you said, they stand on our shoulder. They see different horizons. And they are so well aware of what they want. Because in the rooms, they grow up, it's different from the first time that I connected to internet, I was 19-year-old. My first email and I was so tech-savvy and savvy. Savvy. Like I was the first weblog, one of the first weblog writers or everything, all the social media, I was the first. But 19-year-old. So what was my concept, my imagination of the world? But they, from the very young age, in their room, they are connected, they are playing with someone from Japan or Brazil or America. They have better understanding of what they want. And in one
And who they can be.
Yes, in one sentence, if I want to say that what we have reached, Iranian, to me, are transferring from collectivism culture to individual culture. They are, this is very obvious. People are not even right now, one of the issues is who is the leader? Who is the leader? And it seems that people cannot easily decide. This is not happening. It was not happening 40 years ago. 40 years ago, the revolution happened in a time that we had only 35 million people. 13 million of them couldn't write and read. And culturally, religiously, they were in different condition. But now, the Iranian more than 60% of universities are women. When I was in Malaysia after Ahmadinejad second, green movement, many Iranians moved to Malaysia. 100,000 of Iranians. They were coming from the cities that, if you show me, I didn't know where it's located even.
But let me flip it on its head, because maybe I'm not totally understanding what you're saying. Because for me, it seems like the opposite. it seems like a culture that has been notoriously individualistic, sometimes due to separate, divide and conquer. A culture that, I've always joked about how in the Olympics the only medals we get in Iran is like one guy weightlifting or somebody fighting or something.
Right.
We don't win any collective
That is about
medals.
teamwork.
Right. I feel teamwork. That's been a problem for Iran. I feel like now teamwork is happening. I feel like we've gone from the individual to the collective, at least as a diaspora, in a way that I've never seen in my lifetime. Am I misunderstanding your point?
I think maybe
Probably.
I have to.
Okay.
I have to rephrase myself, or maybe we should reach to the same definition of collectivism culture
Right.
and individual. What I mean about collectivism culture, like being in Asia, I understood what is collectivism culture. It means that your identity, who you are, is depend on what is your race, what is your ethnicity, what is your nationality, what is your religion. This comes first. You are behind these titles, and so you in the community you introduce yourself with these titles first. So easily for any kind of movement or something, you look, who is your tribe? I'm supporting my tribe. Your tribe can be religion based or racial based, nationality based, whatever. What is happening in Iran? Each and every Iranian are they what they own. This is individual. This is something happened in Europe too after they. So this is what I mean. This
I
is
got
what,
you.
and I'm really happy. This is very important because I hope after this experience, nobody can easily makes Iranian united against another group, and that is why we are very. I can imagine like 40 years ago. Some figures who are now loud speaking, they can easily stole the heart of people. But now people are saying, no, okay, you are so cool. What is your plan?
Yes.
And I'm not voting to you. I'm not
There's a
supporting
collective
you.
wisdom and
Yes.
and people are keeping each other in check.
Yes.
In an unbelievable way.
This is very, very important for future of Iran.
I feel like there's a global community kind of Iranians, as well as people inside Iran who are leading it, kind of almost, obviously there's exceptions to this, I don't want to create fantasies here, but who are almost ethically keeping each other in check. Anybody who, for example, wants to demonstrate that anyone who shows that they're trying to exploit this revolution for advertising or money, they're not allowed to. People will call it out and collectively shame them. It's very, very important.
Yeah, that's really, I really love it. I didn't expect this. That's why even with all my, I'm one of those who keep telling everybody that something is happening in Iran, something is changing in Iran. Every time I visit, I see. But I didn't know that it's reached the literacy of people, political literacy of people, have reached to that, that people check each other. The moral, don't say that, don't publish the violence.
Yes.
And people listening, I remember like people were publishing map of Iran without the two seas, Caspian Sea and the Persian Gulf, and there were lots of comments. Okay, don't forget, things like that. Every day I'm 24 hours. I'm checking the news and everything, and I really. That's why that makes me hopeful, because no matter what political system comes, no matter what economic plan they have, at the end we need people and human resource in Iran because of the situation and because there was nothing else to do except education. And like Ahmadinejad makes us educated because many people left Iran and the only way to live was to continue your education. And what is happening, exactly the same generation who left Iran after Ahmadinejad ended up in the very key positions especially in Europe. Like we have a generation who knows how the world system works. Politically, economically, they can go to this parliament. Okay, this party in this certain country idea is like this, so we can do this. In technology now, the greatest achievement of human right now is the James Webb, and there is a girl there, Iranian girl, graduated from Shahid Beheshti Tehran University, and she is there. the mayor of the Germany, the two minister of the Norway, I don't know, the parliament, and lots of, and I always think that if only 5% of the experience inject to Iran, 5%.
Yes.
I don't need them even physically live the comfort life, but just 5% of the experience inject to Iran boom,
You're
because
part
people
of that too.
are ready.
You're part of that too.
I'm ready to.
5%. Let me ask you a couple of personal questions before we end off. Everyone I've spoken to, I think almost every Iranian I've spoken to in the last couple of months has said that they have been crying or have cried at some point. Sometimes it's weird. Looking at a picture of a crowd in Berlin, why is that making me cry involuntarily? Have you been crying?
Yes.
Tell me what you've cried about.
I cried because I didn't know that we are that connected. That I saw that unity, because they separate us in different levels. And we forget how much we need each other, how the pain that we are suffering together, separately, you know. And that demonstration and what is happening in Iran, the bravery, of course makes me emotional. Of course makes me responsible. I feel this responsibility that I have done whatever I can. And to talk to people, write, read, and share, you know, this is whatever I can to inform people, foreigner, Iranian, whoever, because this we cannot go back.
It's funny, I was going to ask you what's been making you cry and what's inspired you, but it sounds like it's the same thing.
Yeah, that is a good kind. It was not crying out of desperation. You know, like they will keep talking us about the separation, Iran separation, tajziyeh. And now, you know, I got really emotional when in Kurdistan, part of Iran, they were chanting Jan Azadi. Few days later, in Azeri language, they were supporting, and then someone insisted on. And I remember the moment that I just remember, just 2 years ago, it was 3 years before pandemic, an earthquake happened in Kurdistan. People were not waiting for government. They know that they were useless. With their own private car, they were trying to go and help. And later there was a big flood happening in Zahedan, and people were like supporting So where were those separation?
Yeah.
And like you ask Iranian about Mahsa Amini, they may say yes, she is a Kurdish girl, but the last thing they would say is she is Sunni. The last thing, it even is not even polite. They don't. I mean, Sunni Shia, what is the difference? But you go to different countries and you see, oh, this is very serious, the Shia Sunni things, but not with people.
Well, that's a perfect segue into a final question, which is that, and I want to tap into both the academic but the journalist side of you, because you haven't just been a journalist, but you've been a journalist in the East, in Muslim countries,
yes.
in Malaysia,
all
Iran.
my life lived in Muslim countries.
And without getting into the weeds of which journalists are reformists and this type of stuff, I'm curious if you were to say one thing that you would like the West, the Western media, to understand about Iran, to understand about this region that you think they usually get wrong, what would it be?
You know, I explain myself with an example. Like, have you noticed we have here and there Islamic museum?
Yes.
What is Islamic museum? Do we have Christian museum? Do we have Buddhism museum? Do we have?
I think so. Aren't there?
No, we don't have Christian museum. We have museum of this country and that country. This era of, but this is something that I don't understand about the method of studying of Middle East. true from Western point of view. I mean, you cannot in a museum collect a carpet, a fabric from Egypt, one carpet from Iran, one vest from Turkey, and these are Islamic.
Right.
This is easy. I think that they've done it because it was easy to understand.
Right.
This categorization of things to understand, it's been happening all this time. What worries me? I don't think that they mean to do that or so. No, it's happening. They are repeating it. It works for them. But what I worry is that, what I'm worried and concerned is in Middle East, especially after social media and digitalization and all things, many things are changing very fast.
Yes.
In different levels, and we don't document them, we don't see them. Things are changing and we are still in the same story of explaining the pain. The explaining the pain is true, but it's half of it. But this change, this dynamic change, it has not been documented because it does not fit to that story, to that canalization of information, and it's gonna have consequences, and that is I'm worried about, because the information is not circulating in a right, accurate way. You know what I mean? Of course, part of it is because of the restriction of politics and all that. But you've been a documentary filmmaker. You know, we've been journalists. We know which type of stories, from which angle works.
Yes.
We have a chance to say, which is true, but have part of, Mevlana. Let's go to Mevlana. Our Mevlana said something very beautiful that changed my life, I could say. Like maybe 20 years ago I've heard this. He said that the truth is a mirror that fallen from the sky and broken to countless pieces. Everyone just pick one pieces, look at themselves. Oh, this is the truth. I'm the truth.
Right.
While the truth is distributed, is shared with people. If I paste my piece of truth to you, we're gonna have a bigger portion of the truth. And I also love it. This changed my life because that's the time. That was the time that makes me really enjoy the diversity.
Thanks for doing this. All right, that was a conversation in Istanbul, Turkey, near the Galata Bridge there, right on the water, with Nafise Motlaq. That was just from a few days ago. This is full time for Roqe for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to everybody out there who's supporting what we do here. And you can go to our website, roqemedia.com, for any information about us, about our mission, about our previous episodes, different programs, about how you can support us as well. roqemedia.com. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together. Sabi Roham, talented Anahita, Parisa, Pega, Mehrdad, and Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. See you on the demonstrations. Mizun Bashi.